everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Wiebe from Sportsnet. Together we are Kenny and Renny, and this is a special edition of the Kenny and Renny show as we tee up the second round of the Winnipeg Ice's pursuit of the Memorial Cup. Team looking every bit the favorite we thought they were after the first round. Usually I go on soliloquies to start this show. I'm not going to do that. I just wanted to bring in one so I could have the stage all to myself to welcome everybody in, but two, because it's been too long since I've heard the music of one Ken Wiebe. So let's get it going here, everybody. Bring Ken into the show. It's time to bring in Kenny. Kenny, I hear that song and two thoughts pop into my head. One, that song is just awesome. I can't get enough of it. But two, I kind of feel like maybe you're resting on your laurels because we went out golfing today, first round of the year. I didn't see any holes in one out of you. What's going on here? Living in the past, man. You're living in the past.
Well, just happy to be at the arena. We're in a good place right now. Should be a fun evening here, and excited for some more Western Hockey League playoff action.
Yeah, we're going to be in a good place. We're going to be in an even better place because we've got a really great show lined up for you here as we set up, what is looking like it's going to be a very exciting run for the Winnipeg Ice. We've got Ted Wyman from the Winnipeg Sun is going to join us post-haste. Dwight Hirst, you always hear me talk about my buddy Dwight. Well, he's a AAA coach for the Eastman selects team. And Denton Matejchuk, who is going to be a thorn in the sides and a really good player for the Moose Jaw Warriors, going to be a thorn in the sides of the Winnipeg Ice. Thought we'd bring in Dwight because Dwight was his AAA coach, and he can give us kind of a look at where this all started for Denton Matejchuk. Then Matt Cockell, the GM of the Winnipeg Ice, is going to join us, and we'll round out the show with Kevin O, Mr. O, who has hosted this show sometimes in my absence, broadcaster for the Winnipeg Ice. So we got a good one on tap for you here. And let's not waste any more time. Let's start it out by bringing in Ted Wyman, a good friend of ours. I'm not going to say friend of the show because it goes deeper than that, Ted. You are a great friend of both of ours. It's great to see you. I feel like I haven't seen you in too long, but I know I did see you on the first round of this series. Looks like it's been a lot of fun to cover so far. I wanted to just start out with kind of a blank open canvas, a buffet for you to serve yourself at, if you will. What are your takeaways from round one, Ted?
Well, I just want to say first off, guys, I mean, it was a real pleasure for me to actually go and cover this series, the first round, and I'm also doing the second round games, just because I kind of got my start in covering hockey and covering the Western Hockey League. And in fact, it was in Moose Jaw where I worked at the Moose Jaw Times-Herald, and I wrote about the Warriors. Ryan Smith was there at the time. Curtis Brown, the head coach, was a guy named Al Tour. I don't know if you guys remember him. I came in the year after Mike Babcock left, actually. So it was, I have a lot of fond memories of that. And I also covered the Brandon Wheat Kings for quite a long time. So just to get here and be doing it again, and that excitement of the youth, when you get to experience that and be around these guys, it's kind of uplifting, It's a lot different from covering the pro game, and I've really enjoyed it so far. So my takeaway has been that the Winnipeg Ice are a very good hockey team. I mean, they're balanced all over the place. We all know how good Carson Lambos is on the blue line. He's just been a man amongst boys the way he's played. They've got a really solid goaltender in Daniel Hauser. They've got good overage players, good 19-year-olds. They've got Matt Savoy and Connor Geekie, who are top NHL prospects, and you've got Zachary Benson, who's leading the team in scoring at age 16. It's just been incredible, the storylines for this team, and they've only played 5 playoff games so far.
Sorry, totally interesting. Great atmosphere too, Ted, right? I mean, that was the one thing. I came to 2 regular season games. And man, standing room only for that game one. What was it like to see this place packed and see people getting behind the Winnipeg Ice and the community?
Yeah, that first game was especially good. The attendance wasn't quite the same for the second two games that I did. There was game 2 of the series and then game 5. But yeah, I mean, it's exciting to see that people are getting on board for it. I think that it's probably something that a lot of people would like to have checked out. You know, maybe a bit of a novelty over the last couple of years since the Ice moved here. But when you're talking about a team that finishes first overall in the entire Western Hockey League, ranked second in the Canadian Hockey League, and by many accounts, many believe they should have been first or could have been first, you know, there's an obvious opportunity here, especially with all that balance that I talked about, for this team to go a long way, perhaps win a championship. The expectations are pretty high. But usually, you and I know, Kenny, from all our years, and you as well, Sean, in Winnipeg, that Winnipeg gets behind a winner. So I would expect there to be a little more interest as we go along here.
The thing that blew me away watching that game one, Ted, was the speed of it. And I mean, part of that's going to have to do with the fact, and we talked a little bit in the last show about the evolution of the WHL and how it was always known as kind of the rugged league, the man's league, but seems to be, you know, finding its way into the skilled side of things. Matt Savoy and Connor Geeky ranking 4th and 5th in Central Scouting is a perfect example of that. But I would say this, I was blown away by the consistent effort up and down the Ice roster. It didn't seem like there was a player who went out there at any point in that game that did not understand what his job was and was not doing that job at absolutely 100%. What did you see in regards from this team as far as its structure and the execution?
The only thing that surprised me about round 1 was that the Ice lost the game, to be honest, because I thought they, you know, just from the games that I saw, they were heads and tails better than the Prince Albert Raiders. And the Raiders did try to get physical with the Ice, but it didn't seem to do much to deter the Ice from what their game is. But yeah, I mean, up and down the lineup, it doesn't seem to matter which line is on the ice. They get contributions from all over the place. They've got younger players playing on the top line. You know, I mean, honestly, Benson's 16 years old. I think he turned 17 on May 12th. The guy's got 10 points already. He's scored some beautiful goals. He kills penalties. He's on the power play. I mean, the guy's going to be a top 10 pick next year in the NHL draft. And then they've got 2 guys that could be top 10 picks in the NHL draft this year. You don't see that kind of amount of talent, especially at that young age, usually making that much of a contribution. And as you said, the blue line is very consistent as well. And the thing that really struck me was James Patrick talked before the series, and so did Carson Lambos, about the fact that this is an incredibly high-scoring team. They more than doubled their opponents in scoring in the regular season. But during the last half of the year, what they really worked on was committing to team defense. And they were so committed to it throughout that series. They played a really, really strong defensive game. And of course, they've got so much talent that they're still going to put pucks in the net. But it was almost like, I don't even know what the total was that Prince Albert got for shots on net, but it was less than 20 every game. And when they got to 20, it was usually from, you know, I remember one game they had about 12 shots going into the last few minutes, and then they had a 5-on-3, and they got 8 more shots. I mean, it's not that these teams aren't scoring. They're not getting any chances against this Winnipeg Ice team because of that great balance, as we talked about. Unbelievable scoring talent up front, but a commitment to team defense is really what's going to take them far, in my opinion.
Yeah, that really stood out with that first period. They were, outshot their opponent at basically 11-2, right? I mean, that was the other thing. We heard all about the offense, but they were so good defensively. Ted, one of those top 10 projected picks is Matt Savoy. Scary moment for the Ice in that first game that we were all at. Took that puck in the knee. How did he look after he returned?
Well, not really that prominent, to be honest, in that series. And I think that James Patrick was careful with him. I mean, he did have to be helped off the ice after taking that puck in a bad spot on the knee. I'm sure that in some situations, maybe at least he might have only missed 1 game instead of 2 if it was more of a desperate situation. But they brought him back slowly. They got him back into the lineup. He put up a couple of points, but I mean, realistically, he wasn't one of the more noticeable players in the series. I think that's an interesting part about this Ice team is that their leading scorer from the regular season, the guy who's ranked 4th in Central Scouting right now, wasn't one of the more noticeable players in the first round of the playoffs. If that guy starts to get hot and he starts putting up the points, they're gonna, I mean, there's just so much, so many places where it can come from for this Ice team. I don't know. Moose Jaw is a good team. So is Prince Albert, but I don't think that they're going to match up, certainly on paper, with a team that has that kind of firepower all through the lineup. And their top scorer didn't even really do much in the first round.
Rob Somerville says here the Ice can play a physical game just as much as their opponents, although they prefer to play a more finesse game, showing their prowess on the scoreboard. I mean, that's going to be obvious when you've got guys who can score. They like to score. But you touched on the idea of the focus on team defense down the stretch. I'm interested in the conversations that you've had with the players following the games and just the mindset that you think they have, Ted, that has taken this team that, the line comes to me. I know that you didn't say it, but it sounds like this team is able to be comfortable in discomfort, which is not usually what you expect from a team that has like all the accolades. And kind of like you're saying, Benson is looking like he'll be a top 10 pick, and Geeky and Savoy, the same thing. How would you describe the mindset that you've been able to glean from this team?
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear that the mindset with this team is we haven't won anything yet. Yeah, we had a good regular season. Yeah, we beat this Prince Albert team, but they're not the kind of team that's looking at their stats, looking at their place in the standings, looking at where they are in the CHL rankings and saying it's going to be easy for us. They were extremely focused on making sure that they didn't take the Prince Albert Raiders lightly, and I think that served them very well in that first round. Even from they kind of started slow in terms of putting the pucks in the net because they were concentrating on that team defense. And then it really started to come later on in the series. They had 10 in game 3 and 8 in game 5. So obviously we can see that they can do that, but they're going to keep concentrating on making sure that they respect their opponent, that they play with the kind of urgency that they need to against their opponent, and that they don't try to think about the fact that, hey, yeah, we're a really good team. Well, they know they are, but they don't need to think about that too much. And so I see that being a really good mental situation for them, a good mindset going forward. And when it comes to the physical part of it, I can't say that I know Moose Jaw super well. I don't know if they're a super physical team. I do know that the Red Deer Rebels and Edmonton Oil Kings, the Edmonton Ice are what the Winnipeg Ice are now.
Yes,
That's how it originated. But I do know they are two bigger, stronger, tougher teams. And I think that it's good for the Ice that they finish first in this division because they can't possibly play either of those teams until the third round, and they're going to be beating each other up on the way to get there. So that's where I think it's going to get interesting for them. I'm not saying that they're locked into beating Moose Jaw. I mean, I will say they are certainly the favorites. But the one question mark some people have had is if they can handle the rigors of those really physical games against the most physical teams in the league.
And the Red Deer Rebels, when I went down for the game with Sam Cosentino, who joined us on the round 1 preview show, man, that series with Brandon was incredibly physical and hard checking. So that certainly had a chance to see that up close. Ted, a lot of things that you talked about. Obviously, there's a great leadership core here. We were fortunate enough to have James Patrick on the show leading into the playoff series. What a leader of men. I mean, what has stood out to you in terms of his job that he's done with their coaching staff and in terms of that preparation and ensuring that attitude is right going in, because everyone is gunning for them. We know that when you're the top team in the CHL, everyone is looking to knock you out well before you get to the championship round. So you have to be sharp right out of the gate.
Yeah. And, the thing that we look at in coaching nowadays is buy-in. A team we all know very well, the Winnipeg Jets, it seems weren't getting that buy-in. The Calgary Flames, on the other hand, with under a hard-ass coach in Daryl Sutter, really are getting that buy-in. James Patrick isn't like that. He's really well suited to coaching junior hockey because he's got a firm but gentle hand, and he handles he can communicate well with players. But I do think it goes back to what I was saying before, is that he needed halfway through the season, he needed to make sure that the team didn't just get to thinking that they could beat everybody 10-8 or 10-6 or whatever it was. and that they'd be fine and they'd be a really good playoff team. He knew that he had to get them to adjust to really concentrate on defense first, and he did. It seems to me, from the way they talk, he has got that buy-in from the team to do that. And of course, when you talk to players, junior hockey players aren't always the most forthcoming people in the world. These are a lot of nice guys, and they try, but they're pretty careful with what they say. But that's the one thing that gets repeated over and over again, is that they need to make sure that they play with respect for their opponent, in terms of, maybe they're the favorites, but that doesn't mean anything. And also that they have that buy-in in terms of concentrating on defense first and not just thinking that they can win track meets.
Ted, you were talking about how good this team is on the back end. I think it's when you watch, and if you think of the examples from the NHL, when you watch the high-end guys who are offensive, what makes them good, right? Like Connor McDavid is a speed demon. He's got great hands. He's got great vision. A guy like Blake Wheeler at the top of his game, he was strong, he was fast, cut to the net, but he's got this great vision. I've always said defensemen who are really good, and I go back to guys like, Niedermeyer and guys like that, they had this je ne sais quoi about them that it's hard to kind of pin down what makes them so good. But all you notice is that when they touch the puck, they move it, and suddenly the situation is way better for their team. Carson Lambos, to me, has this je ne sais quoi quality in that I watched him in that game one, and just every time he touched the puck effortlessly, he was out of trouble and turning the team into a good spot. I can't explain what I'm seeing from him. From you watching that first round, what have you seen from him that can kind of explain to you what we're seeing and what makes us a special player?
Boy, let's see. Smooth skater, great puck mover, incredibly calm on defense, can handle the physical stuff, controls the good passer, controls the puck extremely well, closes. I mean, the way that he can close on an opposing player that might think he has a step on him, forget about it. I mean, it's just, the guy's an NHL hockey player who's playing Western Hockey League hockey right now. And I mean, it's a huge difference maker. And we all know, when you look at the Stanley Cup champions of recent years, they all have that guy, and I'm not saying that Carson Lambos is going to be that at the at the NHL level, but he is at the WHL level without question. So, with the Tampa Bay Lightning, it's, Victor Hedman. I mean, there's a lot of good players in Tampa, but Victor Hedman is such an important part of why they continually win. And you can go through the list of Stanley Cup winners, and they all have that guy, that dominant guy. And I think that you can really see that in Carson Lambos. But when I asked about him to James Patrick, what really stands out for him, and he said it's just that cool, calm, and collectedness. There's nothing that ruffles his feathers. And I think it helps a lot, because I thought Daniel Hauser, I mean, he's got great numbers, and he played well. He didn't face a ton of shots, but he did struggle with his rebound control a little bit. And that veteran, for the most part, defense of the ice made that not a concern. There was never anybody getting anywhere near any of those rebounds. So that was a huge part of what makes that defense work so well. I mean, and when I mentioned the veteran for the most part thing, I would be wrong not to mention Jonas Wu, who's a 15-year-old who played AAA most of this season and is now, I think he played 20 minutes in Game 5 at the WHL level, scored a goal. Just looks right at home. It's really quite impressive.
Yeah, and the beauty of Lambos is he's not a one-way player, Ted, right? From covering the league so long, so often those offensive guys, they don't take as much care on the defensive end as they need to. Not only does he put up points like the 5 assists that he had, but he also takes care of the front of the net, and he's not, manages the puck smartly, and his zone exits are crisp. He's not taking the cross-ice backhand sauce that might get picked off in the neutral zone. That, to me, has been really impressive. On the flip side, on the offensive side, another one of those players with that quality is Connor McLennan. I thought that the goal that he scored was such a timely goal. He carries the little bit of, for a team that's very kind of reserved, he's got that great swagger. What impact do you think he can have in this series?
Probably the same that he had in round 1, which was, maybe 8 points, a few goals. I mean, he's a driver. He's an energy guy. You can really see it when he's going. The offense seems to be going, and boy, when he scores a goal, it's just pure joy. He's just he's a real treat to watch. And the truth is, though, I mean, it's hard to even look at one player on that offensive side and say that they're the difference maker, because they've just got so much. And it's like I mentioned, Zach Benson's got 10 points already. Mikey Milne, I think he had 5 goals in that series. Connor Geekie was more noticeable than Matt Savoy, but he wasn't really one of the top forwards in the whole series. But he's an interesting guy because he's big and he mixes it up, and teams target him like crazy, and he can handle it. So he seems to be able to take that. Plus, he gets his share of points. I think he could be a really big factor for the Ice as we go forward. And that's just to segue into that. That's an area where I really think the Ice are very strong, and that's down the middle at center ice with Connor Geekie and Jack Finley and Cole Muir as their top 3 centers. Those guys are big. I mean, the shortest of those 3 is 6'3", and I mean, that physical presence in the middle has been really noticeable, and I think that's something that James Patrick looks at as a real strength of this team.
Well, and probably something they're really going to need if they should get to the next round, where it sounds like it's going to get a little bit more rough and a little bit more tough. Ted, you've done a phenomenal job covering this so far. We really appreciate you joining us here, my man. Hopefully this run keeps going, and hopefully you're back here talking with us some more down the stretch, bud.
Yeah, right on. Time to get in the car and head down to the rink and see my buddy Kenny there. And it's a pleasure to be on the show. I think it's my first time for Kenny and Renny. So
I know it's been too long. You haven't been covering enough Jets, but you'll remedy that at some point. That'll be good. Thanks for joining us, Ted.
Awesome.
All right, guys. Have a good one.
Enjoy the series.
All right, there we go. Now I'm going to go straight away here. You've heard me talking about this guy on the show before. My buddy Dwighty is what he's usually referred to. I love bringing guys I know on the show, especially when they've got something to say. And while Dwighty doesn't always have something to say, I think he's going to have something to say this time around here. But Dwight is the head coach of the Eastman AAA team. One of the reasons we wanted to get him on the show was because Denton Matejchuk, he's been telling me about this kid for years, defenseman for the Moose Jaw Warriors. Dwight told me right off the bat, and I'm just going to give a quick synopsis of this. Dwight was telling me about this kid a long time ago because I'd said to him, you see any guys going places? And he's like, I got a guy going really far, Sean. He was telling me about Denton. And then I remember he was in the WHL. He was making a name for himself, and I kept hearing things. I remember going to Dwighty and saying, hey, I keep hearing that maybe, Denton can go in the second round or the third round or something like that. And I remember, Dwighty, you saying to me, no, those scouts have it wrong. He's going higher than that. This kid is a stud. And then we get Sammy Cosentino on our show, the draft guru, comes in and goes and says he's talking about the prospects game in the WHL, and no one stood out to him more than Denton. So, Dwighty, give me an idea of what you saw when you first had this player, the growth that you saw underneath him, and why you were so convinced he was heading somewhere, even at the age that he was a very young player.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. Anyway, first off, I would say, like I've been telling you, Sean, like since I seen him at U18 when he was a 15-year-old as an underager making that team, he's a guy that he's got a real knack for escapability. When guys are forechecking and are on him and they're pressuring him, he's got a real knack for drawing guys in and then kicking it over to a D-man and as a button hook, and all of a sudden he not only started the first pass, but then he's leading the rush too. He's got a real knack for getting up ice quick. Not too many guys can put a real lick on him, as you could say in the game. You don't see him really get hit too much. He's very elusive on the ice. He's very smart with the puck, and as you could see in the central scouting rankings, there he's one of the top skaters too. So you start putting together some skating and some elusiveness and the way he moves the puck, it really makes for a good defenseman and all.
He's a high event player too, right, Dwight? I mean, that's the thing. He's very involved both ends of the ice. He's not a big guy, but he's not afraid to get involved physically. How have you seen his game develop since you had him, and now that you see him at this level here, where he's become an impact player?
Well, I think Kenny, he's put on some weight now, right? Like he's pushing just high 180s, almost coming into the 190s for the weight class now, and he's always been a strong kid. Even at 15, he could shoot the puck like an 18-year-old. He's got a really good shot. He finds a way to get that puck to the net, even if it's not direct. It's going to come off the back wall. But the strength in his game now is just getting stronger as he's getting older, for sure. He's got a bigger brother that's a little older than him too, so he's got a little bit of competing to do with him too. So that probably pushes him along in the off-season training as well.
Dwighty, one of the things we like to talk about, especially when we're talking about someone at your level and the kids that go through, is kind of that I want to look at the habits that he had that got him to where he was going. What did you see from Denton that maybe stood out for him as far as the habits, the doing the right thing every day kind of thing that has him where he is right now?
Well, Sean, that's usually something us at our level got to teach. And when he comes along at 15 and is playing at a U18 level against guys that are 3 years older than him in his first year, a player like him, it kind of sounds funny, but as a coach, you're really not coaching him too much. You're just kind of mentoring and just kind of watching how he does things and how he goes about it every day. And he had a very mature way about him at 15 that separated him from the other guys, that he knew that he had to do it every shift and every time he was on the ice, that made him that special at that age as well. And being a point-a-game guy there, and even this year as a defenseman, he was 1 point off of being a point-a-guy defenseman in the WHL at his age too. So his effectiveness and what he does every day has brought him to where he has to be.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, obviously, small town, being a small towner, I grew up very close to Dominion City. I'm familiar with both parents. I know Keela and Jay both. I played baseball against Jay. Know Keela and her family as well. They come from an athletic family. Is that something you could tell right away? I mean, these are also kids that played a lot of different sports.
Yeah, it's Kenny. I'll never forget, some of the team building events we do. We had a dodgeball night, as you could know, and we're playing dodgeball. Coaches are involved too, and I remember taking one right in the face, and it was like a wiffle ball. And I was like, "What was that?" And Denton had the biggest smile, and he's like, "I got you, coach," And I think if you slow mo'd it like the dodgeball movie, it was compressed right in my face, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And he's a lefty too, right? So it came out of nowhere. And if anyone knows the family, knows his brother's on the cusp of major league pitcher, so that came pretty good. And then you're right, Kenny, he's a very athletic kid, and stuff just come natural to him, not only on the ice but off the ice too.
Dwighty, one of the things I love talking with you about is just I love talking hockey with you because you see so much stuff at your level that a guy who doesn't coach wouldn't see. And one of the really interesting conversations I had with you is when you're talking to scouts about guys who are interested in your players. What are some of the things that you feel like you were able to allow the scouts to realize about Denton that you knew from coaching him that they may not have known before he got to Moose Jaw?
I think some of the things that, a lot of those guys at those levels in the WHL and whatnot and junior are looking for is how they are away from the rink. And a lot of kids hear it all the time, but how is he? He's a quiet kid, but yet quiet in the meaning that he lets his play do his work for him. And he's not a noisemaker, I guess you could say, where he's bringing on heat to his own game, but he's doing it quietly. And he just does things that I think they think that when he was younger that he was going to be a little more abrasive, but sometimes the best defenseman on your team is the guy that you never even noticed on the ice. But yet you look on the stat sheet and he's consistently there and he makes the right plays. And I think that's something that Denton, that probably they see what Jason has with him in Moose Jaw there, is that he just does things so quietly that sometimes you're like, holy man, there he is again, but there he is again. So I think that was probably something that they might have brought out in Moose Jaw for sure.
Dwight, what catches your attention with this Ice team? Obviously incredible depth, but maybe some of the guys that maybe you saw through the AAA ranks that have made their way to this level as well.
Yeah, and it's funny. I know you guys had Ted on there about talking about the depth down the middle. They have depth down the middle, but I know Denton from the time he was at U18 to when Connor was with Yellowhead too, right? So Geeky was a Yellowhead boy. A lot of the things that those guys have is a competitive juice against each other, and they all, they've obviously played in the World Youth Olympic Games together at that age group, and I've gone on to other Team Canada events and whatnot, but I know for sure Denton and Connor will probably have something on the table for sure between the two of them. But yeah, the ice are pretty big down the middle, but I think some of the things that Moose Jaw has is some skating defensemen that can match that as well.
Sorry, I wasn't trying to ignore you. We're getting Matt Cockell ready with the technical things here.
Dwight, did you play Matt Cockell when you were young? You're both 79 kids. I know he went the WHL route. You went the NCAA route. Did you happen to bump into him at all?
No. I see he was a goalie, so that was maybe a good thing for him, but I don't know.
How about Jonas Wu? Did you coach against Jonas Wu this year?
Yeah, he's with the Bruins. Again, a smaller defenseman that skates like the wind and is very elusive as well too. So, I know talking to Larry this year too, with his older brother in the Vancouver system and whatnot, that Jonas, once he gets a little bit of weight and height to him, I guess that'll add to his game. But he's another defenseman that he's not far off from playing for the Ice, but the Ice are so deep right now, so it might be a good thing for him to play junior at the junior A or AAA level again, I'm sure. But he's a kid that's going to be a big spot for them there.
Attaboy. Yeah. When Dwight talks about Larry, he's talking about their dad, Larry Wu, who both Dwight and I played senior hockey against. He was a big, tough menace out there on the ice. So no wonder he had two great kids. Dwight, it was awesome to have you on. I got to say, just quick little story here. Kenny and I got out golfing today, and you've seen me golf, so you know the frustration I feel. There was one point where I almost threw my pitching wedge, and I had the pace. I was running down to throw it, and I dropped it out of my hands right before I threw my arms. And Kenny was yelling, "No," because he's actually seen me throw it before. I threw my 5-wood. It went up in a tree last year. It never came down. It's a story he likes to tell, but it will never beat the story of you, Dwight, taking your entire bag of clubs, throwing them in the water,
in the pond,
and walking off the course. That was the ultimate retiring from golf I've ever seen. It was good stuff. Dwight, thank you so much for joining us. You're out in Calgary right now with Benson?
Yeah, it's we're out in Calgary right now. They're on the ice right now and just at the rink right now. It's for the Western Summit here, so it's just in the rental car out here. So not only here, but back into the rink here pretty soon. So
excellent.
Thanks for joining us.
Dwighty. Say hi to Benson and good luck. And thanks for joining us. We'll see you soon, bud.
Okay, thanks, guys. Have a good day.
Take care. You too.
All right. Now from one 79 Manitoba hockey star to another 79 Manitoba hockey star, Matt Cockell, the GM of the Ice, joins us right now. And you know what? I'm a big believer when it comes to sports. You never really know what you have until you see your players under duress. Things went great for your hockey team this year, Matt. This is kind of the first time that they've faced a really, really big test. Is there anything that you learned from your boys in round one?
Well, before I answer that, and thanks for having me on. I am intrigued to hear a little bit more about Larry Wu and your experience in senior. I have some experiences as well with Larry that I'd be happy to share. I don't know if they're appropriate for this show, but he is a legend. There's no question. So I guess, to answer your question, we're more than anything, I would say, grateful and just so thankful that some of our older players have this opportunity. So, not to look backwards. Certainly, that's not our mindset. But we have some special people and older players that have been a big part of building this team and our program. And for them to wait 4-5 years to get an opportunity to be a part of playoffs, which is always a special time of year, and that's what you build towards all season with your team. I think more than anything is important, and we know what kind of people we have, and it's great to see them have an opportunity to do that. To be successful, you got to keep getting better throughout the year. You need to keep getting better the second half of your season. You need to be better in playoffs, and I think our group understands that, and I know our coaches certainly focus on that every day.
Ken?
Roster and the journey that they've had.
Sorry, start that one again, Ken. You cut out. Start that one again.
Apologies. Just in terms of those overage players setting the culture, Matt, and why you knew that they would be such an important piece on this team.
Yeah, I think they're special people, but more than anything, I if you've talked to Jeep, I'm sure he talked about the decision we made 4 years ago with Peyton being our captain, and then some of the things subsequently that we started building towards. So in order for that to take place, you can't do that without your players being a part of the decisions you make, is your players having a voice, and your players holding each other accountable and the staff accountable. So it's a relationship that we're proud of within our group. Our players spend a lot of time defining from their perspective things that are important, and they share that with our staff. We're fortunate to have resources like Mel Davidson, as an example, lead some of the work we do in terms of leadership, culture, and development in that way. And so we're proud of the space we've created for our players to have a voice. And those three players are just great examples of taking that opportunity, helping to define that, and then living it every day. And so we're talking about Nolan Orzak, Jake and Smallwood, and Cole Meir, and we've seen it throughout the playoffs so far, and they've been a big part of what we've accomplished so far.
Matt, I'm glad you brought up Peyton Krebs, because James brought him up in the long form show that we did with him. And boy, we're going to have a lot to talk to you about with James Patrick, because what a guy. It was one of our favorite episodes, just chatting with him and having an opportunity to talk to him. But he talked about the Peyton Krebs effect on this team. And I wondered if you could kind of explain to us what you've seen from the Peyton Krebs effect, having a player like that who came rolling through, who kind of acts as a figurehead and kind of a model of what you want your players to be. What's the advantage of having a player like that roll through, and how do you utilize that as a general manager going forward?
Sure. Can you guys, just a bit of a sound check? Can you hear the band in the background fairly significantly?
Yeah, okay. But it's okay. We can hear you. Everything's fine. So as long as you can hear us, we can hear you perfectly.
Well, it is the youth version of School of Rock, and it has everything except for Jack Black going for it tonight. So they're warming up. But I think what Peyton represents, I think, is so Jeep, when he started in our program, Jake Heisinger, myself, and Jeep, we essentially started this together. And part of that journey was really who did we want to be, what type of players would be attracted to how we wanted to go about our business every day. And it was pretty clear early on, when you talk about work ethic, when you talk about being a good person, you talk about looking after yourself off the ice. At the end of the day, we're developing players and people, and there's a mindset and a work ethic to success, and it doesn't happen overnight, and you got to work at it every day, and you got to get better every day. And so Peyton really embodied that. And along the way, there's been a lot of other people that have embodied that in their own way. Everybody's personality and the way they approach it might be a little bit different. But at the end of the day, I know we have 26 players right now coming to the rink that want to get better every day, whether they're playing 10 minutes a night or 25. They all share the same goal. They want to get better personally, and they want to help our team get better. And so really, Peyton got that started for us. And we think and hope it's the start of something special for years to come. And the players, this year it's a different group. They've taken that accountability and individually taken it in their own way in terms of how they approach things, but it's with the same philosophy and mindset in mind. And I think they're all leaders. I think every player in our team carries leadership in their own way, and that's something that Peyton got started. And it's the best way I could maybe describe it to you is leadership comes first from the person and how they conduct themselves and what they do, and then other people's look to follow. And so I look at our team right now, and in their own way, we have 26 leaders all bringing something to the table, and so we're thankful for Peyton to help us getting that started. But Jeep's leadership and our players really are what this is about, and that's what the program's about. And they've done a great job this year, and we want to keep working at it to extend our season.
Matt, one of those young players, Matt Savoy, I remember the day that we talked when he committed to the program, and it's been an interesting road because of COVID and everything else. Yeah. What's it been like to see the growth of him as a player and as a person in growing into one of those leadership roles, even though he's still such a young guy?
Yeah, Matt, and this is the best part about junior hockey. So you get to know a player like Matt when he's 14, 15, and he can play hockey. So there's never a doubt in terms of his ability. But then you get to know them as people, and they grew up. And Matt is a mature person by nature. He has a tremendous family, and the relationship he has with his brother is real special. So he comes from a place of competitiveness and high performance, and he's lived that his entire life. And so he brings that to our team. And I think as he's kind of grown with our group this year, he certainly brings an intensity to what we do every day that others want to follow. Matt every day comes to the rink. He's getting better personally. He's trying to raise his game to a new level. Every time he shoots the puck on net, he's looking to score, and he believes he will. And so that type of mindset and belief, I think, has really evolved over time. And certainly his path has been a little bit different. And I think that's going to be a great part of his story down the road. And in the short term, I think it's been a real asset for him in terms of the adversity he's overcome. And that just benefits our group.
Matt, I think you saw the last show we did at the start of round one. My favorite moment of that show is a little just technical difficulties in the background. There's some kitchen stuff that falls, and it's not a big deal. But I see Connor Geekie stops what he's doing, comes down the stairs, and starts helping a bunch of arena workers clean up a mess that he had nothing to do with. And so I grabbed the computer and I showed, because you take a look at these little moments where you see the true moral fiber of a young man. And clearly that means a lot to you, because you've brought it up a couple times in your answers. And I guess I loved your answer about Savoy when you were talking. You were saying, clearly we know how he needs to, we know he knows how to play hockey. Now we're digging into the other stuff. All I've seen from your organization is that you seem to have done a good job on bringing in really good people with really good character. I don't want you to give me your caramel secret, but how do you assess character in a manner that you seem to have hit on good character as often as you have?
I can't help but acknowledge it was pointed out to me that you did chip in there as well, Sean. So appreciate it.
Are you saying I have good character? Is there room for me in the organization?
I'm just saying, if that's the criteria, A+. Sure. So I think I guess I would answer it this way. Do you love the game? And our players love the game. All of our and it's not something that's easily defined. But if you love coming to the rink, if you love working at what you're doing, and I would relate it to anything any of us might do in our personal or professional careers. You guys clearly love what you're doing. It's so obvious in how your energy is and your positivity and what you're doing, even in the show. And I think with our players, it's the same thing. So we really try, and Jake does a phenomenal job with his staff, with Ryan Ginter, Tanner McCall, Ty McDonald, Terrace McEwen. They do an amazing job of trying to get to know the players. And it is at a young age in our draft. And we try to do everything we can to have our players a part of our program along the way and make every effort to do that. But if you don't love what you're doing, it becomes hard at some point, and it becomes hard to go through the adversity and do it with a smile, and because to get better means you need to step back at some point, or there might be a mistake and you need to learn from it. So I guess that's the way I would answer that is all of our players love this game, and we know that, and we love spending time with them and helping them achieve their personal goals, and by extension, the team. So I think that's the way we look at it. We love what we're doing, and we want to be around people that love what they're doing too.
Obviously, we know you guys have so much depth, Matt, but it's such a unique situation to have both Matt and Connor be potentially top 10 picks in the same draft. I mean, what's it meant for them to, and especially too, given their personalities, they kind of have a little bit more of a yin and yang kind of situation where one of them's a little bit quieter, one's a little bit more outgoing, and their styles are a little bit different. But what's it meant for them to be able to share the experience together and maybe lean on one another? I mean, it's gone well for them for a lot of the time, but sometimes when maybe it's not going as well, what's it meant to have them be able to lean on one another and also lean on those veteran players that are around them as well?
So, well, I mean, we're real fortunate. First of all, Kenny, Carson Lambos is in our room. Jack Finley's in our room. Connor McLennan's in our room. Connor Geeky got to know Peyton. Matt Savoy did in year one. So there's some resources and peers, and if you could call them that, in the room that have gone through those experiences. So I think it's helped both of them. I know that they've commented on they're great friends off the ice, and so to be able to share in that. But I think there's also some great experience in our room that, in terms of some of our older age groups as well, that they can rely on, and we keep going back to the, if you talk to Carson, you talk to Jack, you talk to Connor McLennan, there's one universal truth to getting better and that's you got to love the game, and you got to love coming to the rink, and you got to love the grind of what it takes to get better every day, and the challenge that brings. And so we have some great leaders in our room, the 20-year-olds we mentioned, some of the other players. So they have the opportunity to be surrounded by a group that has really helped to build this culture of embracing that every day. And they're a part of that, and they're adding to it, and they have each other to rely on, which I think is kind of unique, no question. But there's other people around to help them too, and I think that's really special.
Matt, we know you're a busy man. We got to let you go, but before we do, I wanted to ask this question, and by no means am I saying, hang up the mission accomplished banner or anything like that, but at the very least here, you've built a really high character, fun team full of good people. And at the very most, you've built this amazing collection of skill and a very entertaining hockey team that is also doing a good job of making young men better people. What kind of pride do you take in what you've accomplished here?
I think, Kenny, you may remember this. We sat together, I don't want to say how many years ago it was now, at a Memorial Cup game in Brandon, if you recall. And I think when I look back to some of the experiences in my past life around junior hockey, some of the people you get to meet, and just seeing people grow and then have some different opportunities and experiences, I think that's exciting. I think any of the pride that we have comes from the players and seeing them have success. And those are little things day to day that most people don't see. And it's work that our coaching staff does and our scouting staff does with the players. But I remember, Weber, that was a team, like Krim built and with his staff. And I remember those players, and you remember what they looked like and how they were 4 or 5 years prior to that, and can grow and learn. And so the pride often doesn't come from the outcomes for me, I think, as much as that's exciting and fun. And those are great experiences. It's the journey to get there. And these players have all had their own journey, and they've all put in the work. And so to see them have an opportunity to take this as far as we can is really exciting. And for some of our players not to have that opportunity for 4 or 5 years makes it even more special. So we'll see what happens, but all we can control is coming to the rink with a smile and trying to get better every day. And we're going to keep doing that.
Well, Matt, you've done a hell of a job here, and we are all benefiting from it, the entire city of Winnipeg. This is a ton of fun watching this down the stretch. We wish you all the best. We're going to have to let you go because Kevin O is up, and he gets very curmudgeonly if we make him wait too long in the green room. So sorry we got to cut this short, but best of luck, Matt. We hope to be doing this again for round 3.
Thanks for joining us.
Okay, fellas, thanks. Appreciate it.
See you, Matt. And as advertised, the big man coming rolling into the show here, Mr. Kevin O, it is very good to see you, my friend. How much fun has this been for you so far covering this team? Not like going right back to the very beginning of this, but where they are now. How much fun are you having?
Well, I was having a good time, and now there's 14-year-old kids playing Detroit Rock City with Kiss and a live band at the Ice Cave tonight. They're ripping it up. It's been nothing but the hits. Hair Metal is back at the Ice Cave, and everybody is rallying the storm. It's ridiculous. I don't know if they're on the Gene Simmons payroll or what the deal is, but it's fantastic so far. The energy is going to be great. You know what? You said the right word. It's been fun, right? Brian Muntz and I talk about this every night. Go for a beer after the game, and we can't wrap our heads around just what a joy it is to watch these kids come to the rink every night. And it helps when you're winning, right? Everybody knows that a winning season, you only lose 10 games in regulation in the regular season, that you're obviously, you're going to be feeling good about yourselves. But it's just a fun atmosphere. The building's a fun atmosphere. The hockey's been great to watch. Yeah. We know, right? Junior hockey, you're going to get mistakes, right? And that's what makes it kind of fun. This team, however, has decided that if there is a mistake, a guy like Carson Lambos, a guy like Daniel Hauser is going to iron that out for you, is going to erase it. You're going to go down the other end and score a bunch of goals. So it's been so fun this year watching the incredible success and the incredible growth that this team had, because I think, big picture, I know you just talked to the big boss with the hot sauce, if you will, about building this team. But I would argue that this team was built for next year. And they're doing what they did this year is a pleasant surprise, don't get me wrong, but they're a little ahead of the game, and it's thanks to the Zach Bensons, right, and Daniel Hauser, appearing and just being an unstoppable goaltender on the back end, and the rise of a 15-year-old. You're running a 15-year-old out in Jonas Wu on the back end in playoffs. He's scoring goals. He's playing 20 minutes a game. Are you kidding me? Like, who's heard of that? They've overachieved in a lot of ways, and they're not even done yet, right? They're just getting warmed up. So it's been an incredible amount of fun.
Yeah, just a quick one to wrap up, to put a bow on the story that Matt was telling. I'm still shocked that Taylor Hall got up from that Travis Hamonic hit. He looked like he was Gumby. I did not see him getting up. And it was a clean hit. I mean, that was the other part of it. Man, oh, man. And that Windsor, the Brandon team was very good that year. But boy, oh boy, that Spitfires team, they were tough to beat and fun to watch. There's no doubt about that.
But that's what you get to, right? That's what we're dealing with here, where this team is fun to watch and is incredible. Edmonton's got an incredible team. Everett had a ridiculous season, and they go out in the first round, right? So anything can happen. Buckle up, hold on, and credit to the Ice and the Oil Kings for what they've done so far. And it just feels like they're on a collision course, but this Moose Jaw team and this Moose Jaw series is going to be as high octane as you could expect in a Western Hockey League series. And I know the Ice have handled them pretty decently throughout the regular season, but the Moose Jaw team has just continued to grow and to develop. And the back half of the season, they're a handful, and they're fun to watch. And these games individually, I know we had the Prince Albert series where there was an 8-2 game and there was, some lopsided scores. This one could swing 3 goals either way at any time. Take your foot off the gas against this team and from Moose Jaw, they're going to fill the net with the Jagger Ferguses, right? And the Braden Jaggers and then Matejchuk on the other side. It's going to be so much fun.
Yeah, just a quick one on that front, too. Sorry, I did a little bit of research in the afternoon. That's the one thing, KO, right? You knew going into the series that PA was very defensive-oriented, and they kept a couple of the games tight. Moose Jaw, as you mentioned, that high-octane offense, they have a very active back end. What do you see as the bigger challenges in terms? Again, puck management is supposed to be a pretty big issue at all levels, especially when you face a team like Moose Jaw.
You know what? For the Winnipeg Ice, in my mind, Ken, it's about staying composed, because it's easy to get into a track meet and it's easy to cheat for offense, and there's going to be opportunities in transition, and it's going to be about playing it smart, right? Don't put yourself in a bad spot where you fire a shot, the shot where you fire it wide, it goes off the end boards and goes the other way, because it's going to be a 4-on-1 go the other way, because those Warrior defensemen will engage. So to me, it's about playing smart, playing within yourselves, and recognizing when is the right time to press for offense and to attack in transition, and when maybe it's time to pull back a little bit and make sure that you're in structure and that you've got your bases covered, because they're a real talented group.
Kevin, I'm glad I get to ask you this question, because you've been doing this for a long time. You've covered a lot of coaches at a whole bunch of different levels. But you were talking before about, the Hausers succeeding and the Woos succeeding. And it just seems like every time James Patrick brings a player up and plugs them in, they just take right off. But I've always thought, if you've got a bunch of surprises that keep coming in and succeeding, I'll show you a coach that knows how to put players in a position to succeed. What do you know about James Patrick? What have you seen from James Patrick that he seems to have this uncanny ability to not only get the best out of his players, but put players in positions where they probably shouldn't be succeeding but are?
He garners a ton of respect from these players, even though they never watched him play, right? And I don't think most of them understand his resume and what he did in Canada Cups. And, we go on because we remember that. These kids have no idea, right? But what it is, it's an incredibly high level of accountability. He goes hard in practice, and it is barking, and it is whistles and stop and reset. This is a team on a 12-game winning streak, or on an 11-game winning streak, or on a 10-game winning streak, because they did that throughout the regular season. And the practices were just as high tempo, right? It never changed. So when you're consistent like that, regardless of who comes in, regardless of where you are in the season, regardless of how things have been going as of late, he expects the best out of them. And because he challenges them, they step up. And, you mentioned young guys, and so do I, right? Everybody looks at Connor Geekies and Matthew Savoys and Zach Benson's. The veterans of this team are the presence that keep everybody grounded, right? So they bought in. And we've seen this with other teams. I'm not going to mention any, where there's a division, right? And there's a definite hierarchy. In all fairness, the younger kids on this team are the most talented kids. But the veteran players aren't offended. They aren't worried. They're not scared of losing their grip on their ice time and their role on this team. No, they just welcome them in. They plug them in. They'll play with whomever, right? The old Petersons, the Jake and Smallwoods, they're really good older veteran players in this league, and they drive the play, and they did it in the first couple of games against Prince Albert until the Zach Bensons and the Connor Geekies got up to speed of what dub playoffs were all about. So I give credit to those players as much as I give credit to the young guys who bring the skill. Those older guys who have been around here and have waited 4 years and had seasons where they won 13 games, right? And that was it. To go on a run like they have, they're enjoying it, they're embracing it, and they lead by example every night. So when James Patrick gives them, an initiative or gives them a challenge, those are the guys that lead by example, and they pull everybody along with them, and the talent just pours out of those young guys, which is why it's so fun. This is the deepest team in the league. Edmonton's got.
Oh, a little bit of a freeze there.
They might be on the older side, right, of these players, but the Winnipeg Ice can match them with what they can throw out. It's all 4 lines deep, and so I can't imagine the headache for opposing coaches to say, well, now what do we do? Because most teams in this league or any league have 1 or 2 lines that you really have to worry about. This one's got 4.
Okay, how would you describe the Carson Lambos effect as well, right? I mean, we talk about all those young guys. He's sort of in the middle. He's an experienced guy given his amount of time in the league, but he's still a young guy, right? I mean, what's it been like to see him? And I thought he really set the example and the tone last week in that game 1 in terms of the dynamic defensive play in the first period when they outshot their opponent 11-2. Really does a great job on the back end, but also, I mean, again, we know his offensive game is solid also, but in terms of setting the tone, in terms of the defensive style, what have you seen from him, and also in terms of his leadership?
It's been an absolute beast, and it's just strength, right, in front of the net and in the corners. He muscles guys off pucks. He's in the right position. And the biggest thing for me with Carson, because he's not the perfect player, right? He's a really good player. He's a dynamic player. James Patrick continues to say he might be the best defenseman in this league. But it's his recovery skills, right? He picks good spots to gamble and to make an offensive rush or to dive into the offensive zone. But if and when the puck doesn't go where he wants it to, or it's knocked off his stick, his ability to get back and to recover it is remarkable. And he bails out his teammates, and he bails out himself if he gets himself into trouble. And he's so competitive that I think he drives that team. I think he just settles them down, right? Those talented forwards get the puck, and if they don't, they know that he's got their back and that they can be creative and they can try those, highlight reel plays because they've got a player like that on the back end. He plays tons. Leadership-wise, he's been tremendous. He doesn't need to be. You don't want your most talented player on the back end to be your policeman, to be your enforcer. But if, anybody takes a poke near the goaltender, anybody takes a poke near a young guy like a Zach Benson or a Matt Savoy, Carson Lambos comes in and cleans house, and he's not afraid to do so.
Last one for me, Kev. We were out the other night, and I saw you, and you were telling me about Benson, and you gave me a great breakdown of it. And I went and I watched him play, and everything that you told me made sense. But even I was surprised to see how well he did in that first round, the points he put up. Is this a player that you saw take a step, a giant leap forward in that first round, or was this?
What impressed me the most was the question mark, right? How are these young guys going to react once you get to playoff hockey? And they got Prince Albert in the first round, a big physical structured team, right? They had a game plan. Let's, bash and crash and forecheck the heck out of the ice, frustrate them, try to give them nothing, hang around, and hopefully we sneak one in and we can maybe grind out a win or a goal here along the way, right? Zach Benson didn't just excel. Like, he went right at them, and he engaged in the physicality. So it wasn't like he's known as a guy who can elude checks and keep himself out of trouble because he's not the biggest guy, right? And he's young, and that's a great skill in itself. But he went looking for it, and it was fun to watch. He was the guy. He took a couple of penalties, taking extra pokes at goaltenders, and just playing with fire against the team like the Prince Albert Raiders, and loved every minute of it. And by the end of that series, he's the leading scorer on the team, and just continues to take his game to another level. And, they lost Matt Savoy for a couple of games in that series. And when you have a player like Zach Benson, who can step up and just say, yeah, it's all good. The power play is going to still operate at 40%, even though we don't have our, top-ranked prospect in the lineup and our, leading scorer in the regular season. It's just tremendous depth. But what a player, and defensively, so smart and so quick with the stick. He steals pucks all the time, and he must drive guys nuts. And I'm sure, I see it, where I notice it is like right here, right? He's just getting bigger and stronger. I can't wait to see him in a couple of years' time. He's going to be an absolute handful. He's going to be a great NHL.
Yeah, the one other quick one too, Connor Geekie. I mean, we talked about him a lot the last little while here. I thought we talked about it on the broadcast. He was a little bit hyped up for the game, right? I mean, he was banging into the glass during the warm-up, shooting the guy's helmet, a little bit of a silly penalty, but engaged physically, right? He got the 3 cross-checks for the price of 1. I think that with a series under his belt, this is the type of series where he can really excel. We know it's a team that's deep. They're going to need all 4 lines. But to me, it's that power in his game that can really elevate this round. And he, to me, is a guy that the games get tougher. He's going to get better. What do you think?
Yeah, I think he took a step and he learned some lessons from early in that series, and especially game 1 where he took a couple of penalties, and you could see him. He goes right at the other team, and he gets under the skin, and he's chirping, and he's smiling. He had a game here where he got cross-checked in the face. He took a high stick on a follow-through, so it wasn't a penalty, but he split open. He's leaking all over. He gets stitches. He's back in 4 minutes later and finishes the period and comes down Main Street and then dangles, looks, and just rips a snapshot blocker side, right, on a real good goaltender in Tikon Chaikin. Changes the game. He's a total package. He is a massive load coming through the middle. For defensemen to handle, and he's got hands to boot. And the book coming into this season with Connor was that I don't know if he's fast enough. He's elusively fast, right? It's those big strides, and when he gets moving, he's tough to stop. So I love the steps that he took in that first round, and I agree with you. He's going to be a factor in this series, and I think those transition type opportunities for him, right, are going to lead to goals for the Winnipeg Ice because he can beat a guy one-on-one. and he's going to look for it, and he's going to try to do it. Real smart, heady player, and the physicality and the competitive streak. He plays like a guy who has an older brother in the show, right? And you want to play mini sticks in the basement, you're going to take a few licks to pull it out and snipe one. He's been through it a few times, I'm sure. So, and he's such a great kid. Like, he's such a personality. You have him up on the post-game show, and he's laughing and telling stories, and he handles himself like a wily vet. So he's a fun kid to be around for sure.
Last question to you, Ken. Yeah.
Sorry, we know.
Oh no, last one. You guys both get last.
Yeah.
I'll talk about it. I don't have to be on the air for another half an hour.
Well, this is another classic Kenny and Renny special with our new gear here. I'm down to 11% battery, so I'm going to try to ask one more before the picture goes dark here. It sounds like goaltending is going to be important. I mean, obviously, Moose Jaw's goaltender, their overagers, had a great impact on the series that they had with Saskatoon. But another thing for me, KO, the addition of Jack Finley and what he's meant. How would you describe what he's brought, having that 6'6" guy, high draft pick, experienced guy, what he's meant to sort of stabilize that center ice position for the Winnipeg Ice?
Like Sawatsky, our friend, calls him the aircraft carrier, and nobody can move him out from in front of the net, and he really is in this league. The biggest place that we've seen Jack Finley excel is at the dot. He's been dominant, and they've been unafraid to ice pucks late in a close game because they have, confidence he's going to win 75% of the defensive zone draws that he takes. He's so big, he ties up the opposition. And yes, he's got hands, and yes, he can skate, and he can move, and he's got a mean streak to his game, and he can't move him out. For most defensemen in this league, can't handle him at all. But his prowess in the face-off dot just added that element for the Winnipeg Ice that they have a number of guys who can do it. Nobody does it as consistently as Jack Finley. So I think he's been a real stabilizing presence, and he's been great for guys like Savoy and McLennan, who aren't the biggest guys out there on the ice, because he just creates so much time and space for those players, and then great hands in tight on the power play, that bumper spot where he sets up right on the goal line and he can spin out. Him and Owen Peterson, it's like the biggest game of pinball you've ever seen, right? Those flippers are never letting the ball through. They're just going to continue to spin around front and bury goals. So it's been fun to watch. It's a big part of what this team does.
Kevin O, I got to say, I take a look at this franchise, and they seem to have stacked the deck in the management office. They've stacked the deck on the coaching side of things. They've stacked the deck on their roster. And man, oh man, they've stacked the deck on the broadcast team as well. Kevin O and Munzie, two of our favorite people. You guys absolutely rock it. I'm glad that pros like yourselves are handling what is shaping up to be a special run down the stretch here. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's do this again in the next round or the round after. It ends up going like that.
Lots of room on the bandwagon. Rally the storm. You know the drill.
Right on. See you later, Kevin.
See you guys. Thanks.
Thank you.
Anything you want to say before we get going here, Ken?
Should be a great series. There's some great Manitoba flavor on that Moose Jaw roster as well. So expect it to be another great atmosphere at the Wayne Fleming Arena with the Ice Cave here. Should be a lot of fun. We're looking forward to the series and see where it takes them.
Yeah, it's too bad I couldn't join you. I'm still in Rogers Sportsnet COVID protocol until tomorrow, so couldn't get down there for work. But, I think we're probably committed to doing this again in round 3 or 4 or whatever. Maybe we should start patting the bank account and seeing if we should take a trip out to the Memorial Cup if it goes that far. Regardless, we want to thank everyone who came to join us. We want to thank all our guests, Kevin O, Matt Cockell, Ted Wyman, and my good buddy Dwight Hirst. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And let's see what they can do here. This is exciting times in Winnipeg. Get down to the Ice Cave and go check this out because there's something special happening with the Winnipeg Ice. See you later, everybody.